Hey guys, it's Holly. So today we're going to have a look at the LEGO Harry Potter 2021 buildable fluffy model in comparison by a mock by Tommy C. Briggs. Now, I did a video like this where I compared the 2021 Basilisk from the Chamber of Secrets set to a mock by Built by Calvin. Now, both of these mocks have instructions available online. So for Fluffy's one by Tommy C. Briggs, I will leave the link in the description in case you want to purchase the instructions and the list to get all of the bricks yourself and build the mock. But for today, we're going to take a look at the two models side by side and individually and kind of discuss the pros and cons to each of them and kind of which one overall I think suits best out of these two. Now, the official LEGO 2021 Fluffy comes in the Fluffy Encounter set, and actually the mock of this Fluffy costs around the same as that set costs. Now, if you kind of remember my review, which if you haven't seen it, I will leave it linked in the cards at the top. Overall, Fluffy's Encounter didn't really wow me. It was quite empty in terms of all of the flaws. Fluffy was the main appeal, and even then, I don't think he was that strong of a build. Now, with that in mind, for some people, that might make this mock a lot more appealing considering the price is so similar and the Hogwarts build wasn't too appealing to begin with. However, of course, with the mock, you don't get any minifigures, so if you are interested in the trio as is, you'll have to purchase them off Bricklink. Then again, I don't think they're going to be too expensive. So to start off with, let's have a look at them side by side and kind of see what they're like overall in terms of scale. So taking a look at the two models, and the big difference between these two is scale. The official LEGO one is much smaller than the mock, both in kind of width and length especially. You can also kind of see from this angle that the smaller one has only very few articulated joints, whereas Fluffy has some of those Mixels ones, so there's a lot more points of kind of articulation. Both have got a little small bulldog tail, which honestly, looking at the Fluffy set at first, I thought looks kind of odd, but I think with the mock, the tail just looks even more odd on this one. I would have preferred it to be slightly longer, I guess. So kind of points towards the LEGO Fluffy in that regard. But yeah, like I said, the big thing with this model is scale, but even just the fact that the gray joints and kind of all of those Mixels ball joints blend in so much smoother. And what I mean by that is if you take a look at the head joints and kind of from the side, you can't see any of those joints very well. There's a few on the legs, but Tommy's done a really good job at kind of disguising that, especially when you look from the front of Fluffy. You can't really tell too many of them are there at all, whereas the LEGO Fluffy, that was my big problem with it, is these grey Mixels joints stuck out like a sore thumb. Now, admittedly, there is only 3 of them in this set, but I really think they needed to be recolored. So taking a look at the LEGO Fluffy first, I feel like we should revisit it. So from this angle, I really like Fluffy. I mean, once again, besides those grey Mixel joints, I love the molded heads of this figure. It's honestly my favorite part. And I guess from this angle, Fluffy doesn't look too bad. I mean, his feet still do look super skinny, but you don't really have that kind of bulkiness of his shoulders and his back. I think for the scale as well, LEGO has done a pretty good job at smoothing everything down. I mean, I don't completely agree with the color scheme, like there's some dark brown on the backs of the legs. I feel like that was just very top heavy up here. I would have loved to see it blended in a bit more, especially when you do look at Tommy's build. I also love the fact that they did black at the bottom to make kind of the feet and things like that just blended just a tiny bit better. It's things like that on the LEGO model which I appreciate, which just makes me wish that they'd recolored these Mixel joints to black. I feel like if they'd done that, I would be really happy with this model. I think it would make up for a lot of the other faults, that being the kind of really skinny legs, and kind of look at the back legs of Fluffy and then look at his feet. I feel like he would just topple over with the weight placed on those feet. My other issue is the kind of sleeping head. I think from either side, this looks really well, and that is a play feature built into the set that you can turn him one way and he's sleeping, turn him the other way and he's mad and growling and things like that. But I don't know if it really paid off. For me personally, I would have much preferred just to have all angry faces, especially since the figures are in their school uniforms and not their final challenge sort of outfits. I think 3 angry heads would have been a lot better, or even 1 angry head, 1 kind of growling. Just open that eye back up a bit. I mean, I guess individually the sleeping head's quite cool, but just from the front on, Fluffy doesn't match, and if you want to take photos with Fluffy front on, you're going to have to buy 3 sets or buy multiple heads off Bricklink in order for him to really appeal, which that I'm again not a huge fan of. You do get full articulation with the heads, which is really good. I'm glad to see that Lego did do that. You can't really do a Fluffy kind of build without articulation, I feel. So in that regard as well, I feel like both of these models are a big step up from the original 2001 one. But again, Fluffy for me just comes down to the skinny legs as well as the color scheme. I'm just not a huge fan of it. Again, the tail in comparison, I think the scale works a bit better. I would have liked to see it a bit more kind of chunky or longer in some regard either. But overall, this model is pretty good, especially for the size of the scale, and works nicely into the set that it came in. Next up, we have the custom Fluffy, and this wins definitely, I think, in terms of scale. It's minifigure scale. That's a huge win. Also, in terms of detail, for a MOC, this is really, really nice. The fact that you can't see the mixels joints as well is a huge win. I still feel like this model suffers kind of in terms of scale, in terms of like Fluffy's shoulders and kind of his back and all that, and then having like a really, really skinny kind of back legs. I feel like if this was built up a bit more, it would make it a bit more kind of in proportion, I guess. Like from the side, Fluffy looks great, but if you lift him up, it looks kind of lopsided. It almost like it comes in down into like a little Dorito shape. The other complaint I had about this model was definitely the tail. I wish, once again, it was a bit more chunky or a tiny bit longer. I get that this is supposed to be a bulldog, but in Lego form, it just kind of looks very short and stumpy, and I wish that maybe it was a sort of brick or something like that, or even just like a cone piece or like curved slightly. That would have been really cool. The articulation on this model is a lot better as well compared to the Lego Fluffy, because all of these legs are mixels joints, so you can rotate everything around and bend and pose it. His legs also don't look super skinny in comparison to the model, which is a fantastic win in comparison. Again, the other eye leg has kind of that same mobility. The back legs as well do have some range of motion. However, these are very fragile. You can kind of rotate it at the ankle, but as you can see, if you kind of move it a bit too much, the whole thing snaps off, as it is a one stud connection. However, you can move these both around. You just need to be very, very careful, because that piece can come off there. You've also got the tiles on the sides, which are very, very vulnerable, so you do have to be very delicate. So in terms of a Fluffy for play, this really isn't your guy. This is very much a, I'm gonna put this on display as sort of an adult collector type of deal going on, rather than a, I want to play with this as a play set. Taking a look at the top, I love the kind of mix between the dark brown and the regular brown. I think this looks so much better. It's all kind of integrated. It's very smooth, very clean, lots of nice wedges, lots of nice tiles. I really love the kind of back design of Fluffy. And then, of course, you've got the 3 heads, which for a fully brick-built model look fantastic. I love the detail on them. The 2 of them are just on hinges, and this entire thing is built with used parts, which is why they kind of flop a bit heavier. It would also keep that in mind. These are quite heavy heads in general, but I really like the design of them. Again, you kind of have to be careful with the little bottom mouth, as it's only held on by 2 studs, so it is kind of flimsy, but it's not flimsy kind of like the leg where it's going to completely knock off. You've also got the yellow beady eyes, some teeth, and his little nose, and then the head in the middle is actually attached via, once again, a mixels joint, just like the other Fluffy heads. So overall, I think the model looks really, really nice. It's just those back legs again, but I think overall, this one as a Fluffy looks a lot better because of the fact that there's not as much gray poking through, and that's really where this MOC shines, I think, the most. So those are the 2 Fluffy models, and ultimately I feel like this comparison mostly comes down to whether or not you are an adult collector or you want this set for play. If you want this set for play, there is no doubt about it. Just get the regular Lego set with the Lego Fluffy. If you're a teenager or an adult and you're really looking to a beautiful display piece, I would definitely have a look into Tommy's MOC over the set, because in terms of characters and figures, yeah, the uniforms are nice, but Harry, Ron, and Hermione, we've gotten them before. It's only only really the golden Hermione that I feel like is the big draw here, which again, you can just buy off Bricklink. The Hogwarts modular pieces, if you're going to buy the whole system, do work really well again, but I guess it's really just where do you feel your money is going to be best spent. In terms of overall design, I feel like the MOC surely just, it has to win purely because of the color scheme. Like I said, if Fluffy did not have these gray Mixels joints, that model would be almost perfect, I think, for a Lego playset. But I think at the end of the day, the perfect Fluffy would be a combination of these two. I think it would be sort of a middle scale between the both of them. It would have molded heads, and if the Mixels joints aren't going to be recolored and they are going to stay that horrible gray that sticks out like a sore thumb, at least make it a bit more hidden. So in an ideal world, I feel like a combination of these would be fantastic. But let me know your thoughts between the two sets. Which out of these two models do you prefer? Do you prefer Lego's official Fluffy, or do you prefer the custom Fluffy? And if you haven't as well, check out the instructions for the custom Fluffy by Tommy C. Bricks in the description down below, as well as my comparison between the Chamber of Secrets Basilisk and the MOC Basilisk by Built by Calvin. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel down below, and also check out all of my 2021 Lego Harry Potter reviews if you haven't already as well. And until next time, I'll see you later.